Yeah, let's actually just start with those three questions. Your overall thoughts on it. Would you recommend it to people, and how would you rate it? And I'll go to Trevor first.
Um, I don't hand out tens very often to things, so I mean, it was a good book. So I'd give it probably like a 9.7. So it was I really enjoyed the book, and I actually
Nice.
recommended it to like three of my friends because I have a friend who's a huge Quinlan Voss guy. And yeah, it was probably one of my favorite Star Wars books that I've read so far.
Yeah, it's awesome. It was meant to be an arc on the Clone Wars. It was actually written by uh, Dave Filoni's daughter. No, by George Lucas's
Lucas's
daughter.
daughter.
George
Yeah.
Lucas's daughter, who actually wrote a lot on the show. I didn't realize. I think it's super cool. But yeah, I can. Same question, Justin.
Oh man, it is a fun ride. It's two words of warning if I were to recommend it to anyone is like if you're a book nerd and you like how books flow, like Choco, like you prefer the books over the anything visual. It's clearly written. It's clearly a novelization of a script, and you can tell
Mm-hmm.
while you're reading it. So if you're not that big into that, you could give it a pass. But if you liked Clone Wars, read this book. It's really good. It's more Clone Wars. It's action packed, and if I had to give a number, like it's a 7 or an 8. I'm not a huge number guy, but it's a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's just fun all the way through. There are a few minor nitpicks I could give, but like it was still worth the money and worth the read.
Yeah, and Sawyer.
Um, Forgive me, I did not get very far, but I did get more far than the last book. But no, I mean, I really enjoyed what I did get to read and or listen to, and I'm taking a big drive later this week, and I'm gonna listen to the rest of it. No, I thought it was really fascinating, and I really liked that we could expand the story on Ventress because after season 5, like her character shifted, and like I had so much more respect for her. So yeah, I really liked getting to explore that a bit, and I wasn't originally a fan of Quinlan. I didn't really like his portrayal in the Clone Wars, but I that opinion has definitely changed after this book for sure. So
Yeah. um, yeah, especially because like they really started in the show to show Ventress having an arc of like she saved the girl on that bounty hunting trip. She teamed up with Obi-Wan, and then she disappeared. Liz, how do you feel on it?
I'm always surprised by these books because if you looking at kind of the bones of the plot, the challenge that they're facing, whether they're going to assassinate Dooku, we all know the answer at the end, and I always think like, how are they going to make this interesting, and add twists and turns along the way? And it really surprised me. And coming into this book, I wasn't a big Ventress fan. I tend to dislike characters that are written into kind of that femme fatale trope. I feel like, especially when there are some of the few females within a character, within a female characters within a show, they can feel really one-dimensional. But just seeing how much depth and vulnerability is really fleshed out in this book was really awesome, and she's like become one of my favorite characters because of it. So
Awesome. That's like the best the best vote of confidence so far. Vanessa.
I rate this book maybe an 8 or a 9. It was a real page turner for me, like because it was written like a script. Like I was reading like 100 pages a day, just like plowing through it. Especially like I read it a long time ago, when you first gave it out. But I write for my school newspaper, so I was gonna like write about the book to recommend it because I loved it so much. Like even if people aren't really like Star Wars fans, just like Ventress's storyline in terms of like how her trauma turned her into this person that was so focused on like keeping her walls built up and like not letting people in, but then learning like the importance and like the beauty of vulnerability. Um, I just thought it was something that like can be very relatable, especially like for just showing that like like female characters can be capable of doing that and are capable of like having that depth and not just like this flirtatious like like a villain. So yeah, it really made me love Ventress so much more. And now she's like one of my favorite characters ever.
Yeah, and then I mean, I love how Obi-Wan talks about her. Like, yeah, she's gonna flirt with you. Like, you gotta banter with her. Like, it just makes me laugh. Go to Geeky.
Yeah. No, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know this was supposed to be part of the Clone Wars until I did that brief little TikTok series that I did on it. And then I was like, oh crap, that explains so much about the book. But literally, this is one of my favorite Star Wars books. I think the top two for me are like this one and Thrawn. And like it really does show that Dave Filoni and like the people that write for the series know how to do character development. You know, Ventress, you know, she starts out like at the beginning of the show, she's just really just kind of rude and, like you said, femme fatale. And honestly, I liked her a lot, even as an apprentice Sith assassin character. But in this book, she really grows on you as a character, and so does Quinlan, because I hated him. I hated Quinlan up until I read this book, and I was like, dang, now I love this character. Like, he's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he survives Order 66, because that means I might get to see him again.
Exactly. Like, I can't wait to get some more of that. It's because it was rumored in several places, and then also in the Secrets of the Jedi book, Luke Skywalker, looking back and on these notes, says that he believes that he did survive it. So huge vote of confidence there. And Brooke?
Yes, so I listened to the audiobook. So first I want to give a shout out to the narrator. He did like all the voices of the characters, which made it much more entertaining, I think. So that was really cool. Maybe this unpopular opinion, but like the Clone Wars era is not my favorite, and I haven't finished the Clone Wars, like the actual show. So maybe that'll change once I'm done with it. But despite that, I was really entertained the whole time. I'd give it like a solid B+. I really liked that it wrapped up Ventress's story, because I feel like that's what her character deserved, instead of just like disappearing. I think it added a lot of depth to her and Boss's character, and I think it almost added more to Dooku as well. I actually really liked him in this book, because I feel like he's more just like an enigma that we see as like the big bad of the Clone Wars, but I feel like this part really gave him like more personality, I guess. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, he's a lot like darker and more evil in this,
Yeah.
while still being like regal AF, you know, like. And then Rids, what do you think?
I really enjoyed this book. It's only like the third Star Wars book I've ever read, and Lost Stars was like really good, and then this was just again like it was like I didn't think it'd get better from there, and I'd say it's just as good as Lost Stars, as it was like completely different, and I loved how Ventress's character went from this like scary bounty hunter to someone who really like opened up to Quinlan Vos.
And I mean, I really like how you put it, Liz, how she started out as this very like one-dimensional femme fatale character, just living inside of that trope. But I think that's one of my favorite things, because I think that when characters don't fall into a trope, a lot of people have a hard time accepting them, and they get questioned more. I mean, that's honestly what I think happened to Rey specifically. But the fact that she fell into a trope and then grew bigger than it, I think is just like, I don't know, it's a really cool choice and a really easy way to make a character that an interesting character, but that is accepted very easily. Now, all right, so next questions is who's your favorite character on this book, and why? And also, like we said, this was meant to be an arc on the Clone Wars. Would you have rather seen it on the Clone Wars? And I will start with Sawyer.
Okay. So I'll answer the second question. No, I don't think it belonged in the show. just because like I didn't read the whole book, but like I know the plot, I know where it goes, and I just don't. I don't know. I can't really see. First of all, I think the Clone Wars, something that's so special about the show is that it explores so many different like plot lines at the same time, and it gives like the spotlight to a lot of different characters. So I don't really think that this focus would necessarily. I think it's too broad to encompass an entire season, or just like a couple of episodes, because I think the biggest arc in the Clone Wars is like maybe 4 episodes. So yeah, I just think there's too much there, and I think that it would take away from what the Clone Wars series was supposed to be. And I also think this is just more of a story that is meant to be enjoyed by, you know, people who are like huge fans of Star Wars. And the show itself was originally for children, and I don't know that they would be able to take away the same thing from this book, like, and if it was interpreted as a TV show. And then as far as my favorite character, I'd probably say, I mean, honestly, Ventress. I just love her so much, and especially after this book, and just seeing where her life as a bounty hunter has taken her, and the relationship that she develops with Quinlan is just really fascinating. So yeah.
Yeah. And then Vanessa?
I wrote out like all my answers. So if I'm like, if it sounds like I'm reading off of it, like I just wanted to be prepared. But my favorite character is definitely Ventress. I identified so much with her character. And I loved how they kind of removed her from that femme fatale trope, but still like kept it in there and like incorporated it with her personality and like how like her trauma and her willingness to let people in, and like there are so many instances where she has to remove herself from her tendencies of like self-interest and the typical traits of like being a part of the dark side, because now like she sees Quinlan as her other half. And just like the strength of her character in so many ways, it just evolves in such a beautiful way. In terms of including it as an arc on Clone Wars, I think I prefer it as a book, but it also would have been cool to like see her with that long hair, especially when they're going into the gala and they're describing their outfits. I was like, oh my god, like I was totally shifting at that point, and it was just so nice to finally see, especially like towards the end, even though it is a bittersweet ending, like having the writers give Ventress like finally giving her like that happiness and peace that she deserves, I feel, as a character, and like the love story, just giving her like doing her character justice. That's what I really liked about it.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys both kind of brought it out because this was originally a kids show, but this book gets a little hot and heavy sometimes. So, Rids, what do you think?
I can't choose between a favorite character. I think there's like 3 in particular, and that would be Quinlan, Dash, I think that's right, and Obi-Wan. I just loved Obi-Wan in this book. He was like such a good friend to Quinlan. How like he wouldn't stop. Like he literally gave him like 5 chances by the end of it to prove that Quinlan was still capable of good. And also I love Dash because he was just so different, and he was really cocky, but then he was also a good friend to Quinlan, and the bit where he died was really sad to me. And then also Quinlan Vos, because I loved his character in Clone Wars, because he was just so different to all characters we've seen, and like his ability to see the echoes of the past. But then in Dark Disciple, his character really grew and became this like awesome Jedi, Sith, gray Jedi in my opinion. But yeah.
And nice. Justin?
Alrighty. So as far as favorite character go, it would have to go hands down to Quinlan. And I was like Geeky Times, like it's like 3 episodes, right, in Clone Wars, where he teamed up with Obi-Wan to hunt down Zero the Hutt, right? And he seems so he'd show cartoon character to me, right? He was like, "Don't worry, guys, I got this." Yeah, and it's like, I just wasn't a fan of that. But then in this book, he has like a whole arc, and it's so and it's so, at least to me personally, relatable. You know, he was so sure in the Jedi Order, so sure of the rightness of what he was fighting for. But then he goes out, he meets some people like broaden his views, and he starts questioning everything he's known, makes a few wrong decisions, but in the end, makes the right decision. And it's just a really good arc, and I like him. This book elevated him, like he's on my top 10 Jedi Masters easy, because he's, you know, he's so different, like Rid said, like so different as a Jedi Master, and that's kind of refreshing. As far as if it should be a Clone Wars season, I think so. I could get on a soapbox for a second. It's like, it gives us Ventress's character arc comes full circle, which is something we don't get. And just for that alone, I feel like it should have been animated and put forth. You know, if Dave Filoni and the people in charge like left it up to me, I would be like, it would be worth the time and effort to put a like season 6.5 on Disney Plus and give us just that arc. It would be exciting to watch. It would be, you know, and it would, all these characters would just have so much more depth. And, you know, so you wouldn't have to go and read a book to learn what happened to these characters. And, you know, I think anyone who liked Clone Wars would have no problems with more Clone Wars, you know?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, my thoughts are the Clone Wars lasted for 3.5 years, and so I feel like hitting like 8 seasons is kind of like when you watch Arrow, and he's like, I was on the island for 5 years, and then you're like, listen, man, we've already.
You just brought back memories.
I've lived this.
Why I stopped watching Arrow.
But Liz, your thoughts on it?
To avoid, I guess, repeating everyone else, I loved Quinlan, and I loved Ventress's character arcs, but I thought it was really interesting seeing, this isn't one character, but the whole council and how they operated, deciding to put this man on a collision course with someone who they know isn't probably going to be a bad influence, manipulative in the past, and how they grapple with, once they identify he's turning to, there's darkness in him, and then also how they also, I think, more interestingly, operated in welcoming him back in, trying to rehabilitate him once they were shown that he could be brought back to the light. It just like drives me a little bit crazy though, thinking about the potential for Anakin and him thinking that he was like irredeemable because he killed Mace, but seeing what Quinlan did and how he was able to return, it just, yeah, that was really interesting to me. And of course, Obi-Wan, seeing him grapple with a friend turning and kind of the implications for how he might have processed Anakin's turn towards the dark.
I mean, I get sad thinking about him just waiting in that bar, waiting for Quinlan to show up, and then like, I don't know if he's alive or she caught him. Yeah, Brooke.
Like I said, I really liked Dooku in this. I loved how like snarky he was in their encounters. I think it as well. And I, of course, will always love Obi-Wan in anything. I just hear him sitting at a bar, like getting drunk on accident because he's waiting for his friend. He's that good of a friend that he would do that. So I liked that. As far as if I would rather it be a book or watch it, normally I'm like always book over seeing it. But I think it would have been a really interesting arc on the show. I think I looked it up and it was supposed to be like encompass like 8 different episodes. So it would have been not dragged out, but it would have been hopefully done justice of what the book is. And I think because it reads very much like a script converted into a book, I would have liked to see it. And I just feel like there's some things that are always better on screen. Like I'm always going to want to watch a lightsaber duel on screen versus reading it. Yeah, I would have rather, I think, watched it. I liked the book, but I think some of the action sequences almost lasted too long because it was very descriptive, which is good to picture what happens, but it almost drags it out too long, whereas like it would be able to like condense it because you're seeing it on screen.
Okay. No, that's good. Trevor?
So one of my favorite characters, strange enough, was actually Boba Fett. Coming in and like the
Okay.
end, I don't know if I think I want to save my description for that for the Act 3 part, but I can't see it as the Clone Wars because like what you said with it only being 3.5 years, I mean, I just I just can't see them stuffing any more into the Clone Wars. I mean, I would have loved to see it, but I don't even know where they would put that in the show. Like while they're taking down, they can't put it where Ahsoka was called for treason because Ventress is that, and anywhere after that is like crunch time with Order 66.
Yeah, no, you make a solid point. And then Geeky?
Yeah, really kind of like what he said. It's hard to place it because the way the book works and the way it feels with the show, it seems like stuff that would be in the first few seasons before Maul, but everything in the character development is actually post Maul. So the way that I felt about it would be like, yeah, it would be good in the Clone Wars, but it's placing it would be difficult because after Maul shows up, there's a lot of alluding to what's going on with that storyline, and it's hard to place it in there. As far as characters, definitely Quinlan. I love Asajj, but we do get some character development on her throughout the Clone Wars. But with Quinlan, you know, there was the Hutt storyline, and then I mean, he was kind of a prick, like he really was. And so it's just like after that, I'm like, you know, I really don't like Quinlan, but then I read the book, and Quinlan just goes through this incredible change as a character as he goes through everything that he goes through.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement, Quinlan, as well, because I find the Hunt for Zero a hard arc to watch. If I ever have to watch Cy Snoodles and Zero like flirting, oh my god, it just makes my skin crawl. And yeah, I feel like Quinlan was introduced as he's like Obi-Wan but dirty and worse. But
the anti Obi-Wan.
So I did love seeing his development, but like you guys said, you know, Ventress and how her understanding of how the Force works and the dark side and what strength is, and so I really enjoy that, and both sides are kind of having this misunderstanding of what the right thing to do is, the right way to be. And so it's fascinating to see those two off viewpoints that they fully believe is the truth kind of, you know, hit ahead. So yeah, I mean, it's no surprise the two main characters. This is not a hot take, but I loved it. As far as it being on the Clone Wars, I've been on record saying I prefer books to anything else, just because we get internal monologues, like we get their internal dialogues, their thoughts, their feelings on things, that you can't really just display. And also to get the full effect, you know, like Brooke said, this would have to be like an 8-episode arc, and even then it would be hard to display all of it because it's pretty multifaceted. But yeah, jump into it. Full spoilers now. We're going into the first act of when they start, you know, all the way up to joining Ventress. And this one, I know my order sounds random, but there actually is a plan to it. So, but I'm starting with Rids this time.
Okay. So so where we start in like the first act.
Yes. So the start of the book until Quinlan actually joins Ventress. So the start of the book and when he was intruding on her first
Okay.
on the mission.
Okay. I found Dash's and Quinlan's relationship, like friendship, really funny. Like it just the way they would kind of like bonding, I think it was at the start of the book, and then when Kenobi was always like against Ventress and Quinlan Vos, but the Jedi Council in this book, I just really disliked them for some reason. Like without Yoda, without Yoda, a lot of bad stuff happened inside the Jedi Council. But I really like the first like kind of fight scene where Quinlan Vos like teamed up with Ventress, where because like he like had mercy for the family. I found it kind of wholesome, and then he was like, but then she was just like, nah. Yeah, not much to say on the first, really though. It was good.
Yeah. All right. And then Brooke.
There we go. I agree. I didn't really like the council. I thought it was kind of surprising that they were just like, yeah, we're gonna go send someone to assassinate this guy, which is, thank you, not normally like what we would think of the Jedi. So I guess it shows like it was I think this is supposed to be towards the end of the Clone Wars, like how desperate they were getting just to end it. I thought was interesting. And then I kind of liked the whole dynamic in the beginning when Vos is like meeting up with Ventress and trying to like tag along. She's just like, ew, get away from me the whole time. So I thought that was kind of fun too. And just to see like the beginning of their relationship.
Yeah. And then also, sorry to do this a little late. I'm going to throw another dynamic in there, right? Because everyone's mentioning the Jedi Council. Were they wrong? Was the Jedi Council wrong for what they said, or just your thoughts on that as well? And we'll go to Geeky.
Yeah, no. So I think this book does a really good job at the beginning of like, and it's been a big kind of like comment discussion thing on TikTok lately. Just like, did the Jedi Council get what they deserve? Did the Jedi, and this book does really well of showing the problems with the Jedi Council, and specifically because the whole Barriss thing came out, that people have been talking about a lot lately. The Jedi Council had this idea, that we're the peacekeepers. We have to be above this stuff. But then when they get annoyed or get tired of having to try and deal with catching Dooku, they're like, you know what? Let's just send someone to kill him. And then everyone looks around and they're like, well, I can't do it because I'm on the Jedi Council and here I am in the seat. I got an idea. There's that dude Quinlan over there who doesn't have any problems. Let's just go and send him. And Obi-Wan's like, what? Quinlan? Really? Like, come on, guys. We can't kill someone. That's not what we do. And they're like, no. Send Quinlan. That's what we're gonna do. And they all, in my mind, kind of became like Luminara, where they wanted to be above. They envision themselves above someone else, but they're not. But whoever they're sending is not above that. At least that's how I took it.
Interesting. I didn't consider it that way. I like that a lot. And Sawyer?
Yeah, no, that's a lot to think. That there was like 3 questions circulating. As far as the Jedi, I mean, it kind of seemed like a very rushed decision. They were just like, okay, last resort, we need to kill Dooku. And obviously Obi-Wan's reaction was kind of typical. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know how to comment on that necessarily, just because it, that takes place at the very beginning of the book, and then it's like, okay, here you go. I'm not really sure why they chose Quinlan necessarily, because they knew he was eccentric. And I feel like, I guess you would assume that maybe they would have thought, oh, this could go in the opposite direction of how we want it to go, which is kind of what happened, but not really, but kind of. So yeah, I mean, as far as the Jedi go, that was just an interesting, and it just felt, it took place in the period of 2 chapters, and then it just sent Quinlan off. But yeah, I guess that kind of sums up my thoughts on that. But the whole part as a whole, I mean, I really like how the whole chase scene happened within a period of like 3 chapters. And I mean, honestly, I was kind of confused. I can't remember his name, the guy they were chasing. But you know, they went back and forth. Like, he's a bad guy, he's a good guy. I couldn't really tell like who I was supposed to side with there, because you know, he was like, "Oh, I'm doing this for my family," and yeah, I don't know. That whole thing was kind of confusing. But I really like Quinlan's like introduction to Ventress, and like immediately you can see his personality for what it really is and the way that he's going about. I don't know. I really enjoyed it from the minute they started interacting. The tension there was like really high, and I was like, okay, I really like this. Yeah, no, I really liked it. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, awesome. And then Liz.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the scene with the council, making that determination. I feel like the ways in which they talked around, like, oh, it's justified. Like, we had this huge event just happen and it was tragic, and because of that, we can find an orderly solution to this that'll avert so much bloodshed. And I think a lot of the logic of what's wrong with international relations is based on that, of this terrible thing happened, so we're going to commit something terrible to that will, of course, like put an orderly end to things and not make it 1,000 times worse. And yeah, seeing that rationalization on the council and how it aligns with a lot of the unfortunate thinking that makes it so toxic. And when we look back and say, well, the Jedi Council was not as pristine as maybe they were portrayed in what we pictured in when we were watching the original trilogy before we got that full backstory from the prequel trilogy. And I think, one of my favorite parts is, seeing the interplay between Quinlan and Ventress, how they really got along well together. Each is trying to conceal information from the other. First, it's Quinlan and him trying to be a totally normal, cool bounty hunter that like is like flirting along, totally not a Jedi. And just seeing them interact together was really, really cool. I wouldn't have, so I liked how those kind of very strong personalities from the Clone Wars worked so well together.
Yeah. Vanessa?
I agree with like everything that everyone is saying in terms of the Jedi Council. I feel like I don't remember enough to like have an opinion, but as I was reading it, I was just like, wait, what? Like they're doing this? Like this is so out of character, at least not out of them, but like their morals and like the code. And as Liz was saying, in terms of like international relations, like it doesn't make sense. Like so many people have tried to kill Dooku already. Like what makes you think that like this unpredictable person that like is going to be able to do it for you with someone else with another person who is like very unpredictable? Like it just didn't seem like a logical plan, which maybe someone can like that is for the decision can like explain it or justify it for me. Like, I would love to hear that. But in terms of the first act, when they first are sort of introduced to each other, I thought it was really cool to see how Ventress, her personality is already very like predatory and like fighting for herself, but also just how she uses her force ability to her advantage as a bounty hunter, and how it's kind of like Quinlan, who is also a force user, is able to sort of like outsmart her, especially in that first chase. So they're both like very competitive, and you could already like feel that tension. So I was like, oh, this is so it's like it was very entertaining to see that. And there's a quote in there that I copied down. It said, Ventress, whose friend was the force. She was really trying to explain like how Ventress is like very in touch with the force and like use it to her advantage. So yeah.
Awesome. And Justin?
All right. So a lot to say, but I really liked the first act, mostly because, and I'll put it this way, it laid down all the pieces we needed. So it opens up with that big battle in a POV of like a family that gets slaughtered by the end of it. And then it pulls out and it's like and then suddenly you're the Jedi watching this happen, and you're grieved because all these people died, and so you're in that frame of mind for them to then have that discussion. But well, what are we going to do about this? And I'm not going to argue for their decision. I don't think anyone in this call is, because it was wrong. You know, even in a relational standpoint, like you were saying, Dooku was just a figurehead. We kind of learned that in part 2. That's one of my favorite parts about second act, which I'll talk about. But like, Palpatine would have replaced him with somebody. He probably had 2 backup plans, you know, he's Palpatine, you know. And so it was just, they felt it was justified. And I really like what you said, Geeky. It's like they were so above it that it just felt like they were moving pieces. And it's easy to make decisions like that and justify yourself when you're seeing yourself above it all. And that's what I forgot to say. It was another reason why I would have loved to see it in the show, because Clone Wars shows us a lot of action, shows us a lot of down singular character development, but it doesn't really show us just how haughty the council is. It never, and this would have been a nice nail in the coffin. It's like, oh yeah, the Jedi Council has lost their way. You know, anyone watching it, because, you know, people talk about it and you kind of have to theorize and discuss, but like if this was in the show, people would have been like, no, the Jedi Council has lost their way. They're way too haughty. They think they're above it all. And, you know, and everything about that scene was great, in my opinion. The characterization, everyone spoke how they would have spoke. Since I was reading it, I just heard it all in their voices. I was like, yeah, Mace would say that. And, you know, Obi-Wan would say that. And
with a Southern accent.
I'm you guys are joking about it. I'm really glad I didn't listen to the audiobook now, because I had my perfect voices in my head. So I'll stick with my imagination. Thank you. But, and then also the introduction of Quinlan and how, you know, he was kind of annoying, but then it makes clear like who he is and why he's that way. He's always been undercover. He does this undercover work. He uses his Force psychometry to catch bad guys, to like find out exactly where stolen goods comes from, which is really cool. It's really freaking cool. And so it puts into perspective why they would choose him, what makes him so special, why he's kind of the way he is, because then you're starting to question, is it all an act? You know, is it, you know, because he has to be an undercover crime person all the time, apparently. That's just what he does, which is why we don't see him a lot. And so it laid out the pieces beautifully, and then the story starts. And I guess that's my 2 cents. And also, yeah, the Jedi Council was wrong.
Awesome. And then Trevor?
I mean, so when I first read this and it was like, oh, we're going to assassinate Dooku, I actually laughed out loud because I thought it was a joke. And I was like, the Jedi Council seems like they would never, like, that just seems like something they wouldn't do. Like, oh, we're going to send the guy to go kill somebody. Like, and there's like that's not even the best course of action, because stronger people have tried to kill Dooku and failed. And you're not just assassinating Dooku at that point. You're going up against Grievous, who better Jedi have tried. You're going up against all of Dooku's goons, and that's just not smart. And as for him introducing Ventress, one of my favorite scenes with Quinlan in the Clone Wars that I always think of when I seen him is when we first see him. He drops down, he looks at Cody and goes, "Hey, Commander, looking good." It's like that joking tone with like a war soldier. And I just see that he's like, he's so loose. It's almost like you're scared for him because you think he's too loose, but then he immediately shows that he can pick up his slack at a moment's notice.
Yeah, he can go from 0 to 60 like that. And much like Obi-Wan, he's doing this to throw you off. You know, he doesn't want you to know that he can do it. For me, it's so one of the things I did love, and I was confused the very first time I read this book, because when the book starts, we're on a ship, and you know, with different species that we've never seen. We find out Desh is the same species, but basically, Dooku just slaughters this entire, you know, ships full of refugees that are just leaving a planet. And so that's why I understand that the Jedi were off base, right? They got kind of squirrely, but at the same time, I can't blame them, because if and it also kind of adds credence to how can Ventress kept surviving after fighting Obi-Wan and Anakin all these different times. They're trying to capture her. They're trying to stop whatever bad thing is happening but they're not there to murder people, right? That's was never their goal. And in this case, they're like, so many billions of people have died at this guy's hands. When is enough enough? Where do we draw the line? And so I feel it on both sides because, you know, I don't know if you guys have ever played Knights of the Old Republic, but that's if you like Revan was like, the Jedi are not acting and they need to. And so he got a group and he went out and started acting, which is right. I don't know. He fell to the dark side, but I think it's just a lot more complex than just, you know, they did the wrong thing because they believe they're doing it for the right reasons. But overall, they were still wrong. That much is very clear. But yeah, that whole, my favorite part in the first act is just that conversation of Obi-Wan and talking to him and telling him about Ventress and like him explaining these concepts that are foreign to a Jedi of like, okay, so she's kind of hot, so you gotta, it'll be weird if you don't notice that. So you have to notice it, but you have to not make it obvious. And then he's like, I don't know, just that there's just such a weird conversation. It just makes me chuckle whenever I think about it. But yeah, jumping forward to the second act, right? So we have, now they're actually working together and doing missions and catching their stride while Asajj is like making him train and do runs and stuff. All the way up through when they do try to do their assassination attempt that does not go super well. And this one will start with Kiki.
Okay, cool. I didn't think I was going first this time. No, actually, the whole Ventress and Voss moment, like the whole time that he's training with her, was really cool because even in the Clone Wars, there's not like a whole bunch of romance. Even in the books previously, you know, with Star Wars, it's more about the battles and more about like the things that happen, and less about like character feelings and stuff like that. So like seeing him work with Ventress and like the two of them develop feelings for each other, like it was a really cool moment to see in a book, and I feel like that moment would have been cool to see on screen. That was one of the moments that I would have liked to have seen on screen in and of itself. I did enjoy watching that part, but like the entire part of reading it, I was just like, let's get to the assassination attempt. And then like they're like falling in love and stuff, and I'm like, all right, this is great, but let's get to the next part. Let's get to the third act.
Awesome. And Trevor, your thoughts?
The one thing I think I saw really the Jedi and Quinlan was when they're saving the Pikes, and he was talking about, oh, we got to save the kids and the mom because, you know, they're people. And Ventress like, oh, but if we don't, the Pikes will kill us. So it kind of showed that Ventress was only in it so she could get the money and not die. And Quinlan was in it because it was two souls that needed saving. And then, yeah, I mean, it was like, then they had that relationship. I was like, all right, cool. Let's kill Dooku, please. Like this is great and all, but I want to kill Dooku. Let's go do that. And then it was a cool, like watching them do more bounties and seeing them become partners was cool.
Yeah. And Brooke?
I have a couple thoughts about this like middle part. I think it was maybe my favorite like section. So I like how their relationship kind of starts. It's almost like comedic relief in a way, just because like Voss is such a character and their dynamic is really interesting. It's like we've all had that coworker or classmate that's just like way too happy all the time, and you're just like, please, it's Monday morning, like leave me alone. So I liked seeing that like develop into something else, and them actually like gaining respect for each other, and then eventually like gaining feelings for each other as well. I thought that the part where they're like drinking the whiskey together and kind of like trying to size each other up or get information out of each other was interesting as well. I think Voss like pretending to be too drunk to like get information out of her was like the perfect tactic for his personality with his like skills as a Jedi. So I thought that was cool. What else? I have notes. I thought the most powerful moment was when he was challenged to kill the sleeper, because like the whole time I was like, don't do it but like also do it. I don't know. Like I couldn't decide on what I wanted to happen. And it also I think showed kind of how like Ventress's view of the dark side is like really complex, from her like coming from being an apprentice of a Sith to now like becoming a Night Sister, and then like all the stuff that has happened to her. How she can still like want to channel the dark side, but like not go too far into it, I guess. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting how kind of complex it is. And then we see it more towards the end as well. And then the last thing I thought was really interesting in this part was when they're actually going to assassinate Dooku, when they're on the balcony or ledge or whatever it is. I think Dooku says something like, oh, like, well, we're, you know, the Jedi, they're, you know, putting like real clone troopers out there and like getting them killed, and we have like robots instead. And it's like, huh, that was interesting to think about. And I was like, wait, this is propaganda, because they've also killed like so many innocent people. I just thought that was kind of interesting how like Dooku's view of the Jedi was, or like what his like thought process was behind like why he thought what he was doing was like the right thing. So yeah, I like that too.
Yeah. And Liz?
I agree with Brooke. The whole section on Dathomir where Ventress was explaining her viewpoint on how the dark can be used, and her continual emphasis on you need this so you can survive this fight with Dooku. Like, you're not strong enough. I'm worried for you. Coming from a place of concern that I think really mirrors Anakin's kind of frantic worry about Padme, and how it can lead someone to choose something that's so destructive. But then her continual insistence of there's a limit to which you can go. And I've been tying myself into knots, especially there's a remark at the very end of the book about how Dathomir feels like it's steeped in darkness, but it's a good darkness and it's comforting. And like how because it's owned by the Night Sisters, it's not quite the same as the darkness felt by the Sith. I'm still like trying to work through it in my head of like how that reconciles with the morality of the Force. As someone who like personally doesn't necessarily agree with the idea of Grey Jedi, how like she could use the darkness but see it as a positive thing, and then also that remark about Dathomir having like a good dark side. I don't know, I've just been like trying to think through that and be like, how does this work out? So it's an interesting view of the Force that we got, and I really appreciated that. I always like when we get to see a bit more about the mythology of the dark side. So.
Yeah, it's it ends up being having a lot of nuance to it, right? Because as we know, the dark side is part of the Force, right? It is part of it. Justin, your thoughts?
Oh man, yeah, this section was great. You know, I'm gonna agree with a lot of people that it was great watching their relationship. And I wasn't like hurry up like some people were, but it was great to see these two kind of opposing forces meet in the middle, and then that meeting became like, you know, loving and intimate, especially since because they were both really wary of each other. They were like, we can't trust, you know. And he learned slowly that she does care, but only in certain instances. She saved that lady, remember, in Clone Wars, because she could identify with that. She could identify with the girl who didn't have a choice, and she wanted to give that woman freedom like she found freedom. And then she could identify, there was another thing and I forgot, but like Quinlan, it didn't matter if he identified it. He saved a mother and a son because he was like, this is a family and they matter. And then she sees that, and so they kind of grow closer to the middle morally because of each other. And that was just great to watch, you know. And then of course, everything on Dathomir was great. Dathomir lore, dark side lore, I freaking ate that up. It was the sleeper. I was like, okay, so you're telling me it's like this Lovecraftian creature that they bring up every once in a while, and they have to get its juices because those juices are what they bathe people in for those rituals. And I'm like, oh, this, you know. And it's like creatures are a great part of Star Wars that I feel people other than Filoni don't use enough, because it's like, oh, this, you know, there's like creatures steeped in the Force, creatures, and so just the narrative and just the lore implications of those moments were really cool. And then somebody said it, but when they go to kill Dooku and they're like in a celebration and people are like, oh yeah, Dooku. This is another reason why I think it would have been nice to see it in Clone Wars, because we see it once, I believe. Ahsoka goes to a separatist planet and like meets some separatists and are like, ugh, these people worship Dooku, you know, and that's how we feel. But then from this point of view, we're like, these people worship Dooku. They think this is, because we only see in Clone Wars that the Republic isn't perfect. We see that in a few episodes. But these people truly believe that it is too corrupt to save, and so that's why they're separating. And of course, they're being taken advantage of. Sidious, Dooku, we know that from a super macro perspective, but from surface level, it's like these people really think they're doing the right thing, and they think they have the moral high ground. They're like, yeah, they bred soldiers, which we, you know, people make jokes about, but it was kind of wrong. It's like kind of like slavery. It's like they don't have a choice, you know. They bred soldiers, but we use robots. And so, and then Quinlan starts questioning just as we're questioning. We're like, oh yeah, are we really the good guys? You know? And so that moment was great to me. I loved that.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, it's actually, it's kind of crazy because in one of the recent books, it retells Clone Wars stories, but from a specific character's point of view. And when Yoda looks at the clones, their imprint in the Force that he sees is like a child's, because they're children. And Yoda fully understands, no, these are people, we need to care about them. And he thinks it's horrible that people view them as just property or whatever. So it is interesting to hear that other perspective. But also, going to what you said, Justin, one thing I just desperately want to see is because Grievous was at that party. I want to see Grievous like at a dinner party mingling with people. Like,
history is great.
Got like one goblet in each arm.
Yeah. Like a quad fist in it. It just,
I'm gonna get crunked.
him wearing like a little tux with a bow tie or whatever. Like,
You want to see my lightsabers?
yeah. He's just
Would you like to see my collection?
Oh, man.
And your thoughts on it, Rids?
My favorite part that I think we should have got more of was the part with the pirates. Like I really wanted to see more of the female pirate like leader, and like although it was a short part, I just thought it was really interesting how also he was like, so like someone said earlier, he was pretending to be overly drunk to get this information, and that's why I love him so much, because he's like a really different character. Like when else do you see that in Star Wars? It's kind of rude, but it's kind of funny. No, and I really like it. Also, I like the failed assassination scene, but more specifically when Ross like disables Grievous for a while. Like he just goes rogue on Grievous and locks him in, and that was the coolest part for me, because I could just picture it happening. And yeah, overall I really like the snack, and I did like it. I did like the I forgot the name of the planet, the fiery planet scene as well.
When they're on Mustafar.
So yeah, it was a good Mustafar, sorry.
Yeah. Awesome. And then sorry, when your camera goes in and out, it shifts the order, so now I have to remember. Sawyer?
So I did not get, clearly I missed a lot of action because I kind of maxed out like right as Ventress and Quinlan started training together. I got through that like segment and then school happened. But one thing I will say is it was quite nice, for me at least, to see Quinlan get put in his place when he was still not using the Force and like, you know, kind of hiding from her that he was a Jedi. Yeah, that was kind of nice to have him go, oh, okay, like she won't mess around. Like, I don't know, that's my one thing I have to add.
Yeah. And then Vanessa?
One of my favorite points in the book is when they're asking each other what their stories are, and then in chapter 8, this is a quote. Boss says, "I wonder what's worse, to have unhappy stories or no story at all." And I thought that it said a lot about Venus' character because she has experienced so much loss and pain, and it is something that is so inescapable for her, and it's just like the embodiment of her character is that pain. However, she uses it to her benefit and as part of her story rather than her defining trait. It's sort of like this pain that like keeps her going in a way, and it is her motivation. And my interpretation of it was with Voss, like he's saying that he feels like he doesn't really have a story because all of his experiences were like meticulously planned by the Jedi with training him at the temple and just like everything that he does, like he serves that purpose. Whereas with Ventress, it's sort of like she is free because she has no one. So her unhappy stories and unhappy life is like serves that purpose of freedom. Um, and then also when, of course, when they're going to get to the gala, I was like, oh my god, because I was just shipping them so hard at that point. Actually, rewind really quick. I didn't write this in my notes, but you were talking about in when they went to Dathomir, and I thought it was interesting how Ventress was saying that that Quinlan needed to master both sides of the Force to be able to beat Dooku, because from my understanding of the dark side, it was like as soon as you start to kind of toy with it, it's like it takes over and it's like you become so obsessed with it until you're doomed and you just it'll get the best of you. But just sort of that like going in and out of it, and like even though it is like such a dark force, you can use it to your benefit. I'm still like not entirely sure how they're sort of able to like not ease in and out of it, but like keep themselves in check in a way while doing it. But also, you mentioned it before with the I guess the mindset of being a separatist. I remember like scoffing at Dooku's quote saying the Jedi and with their slave army, but I was like the separatists are also like such an oppressive force as well, and stripping people of their resources for their own benefit, and just like separating family, like all these different things. So I tried to put myself in that position of like if I were to be a part of that, like who I would have sided with, because like of course the Jedi were flawed and I don't really agree with breeding these slaves to as an army, but also with the clones and their mindset, they believe that like their purpose is to serve and they're so proud of that. Whereas with droids, like they just it's what they're not that they're trained to do, but I can't find the word right now. It's in like their programming. So I don't know, just it's really like a little morality puzzle.
Yeah. And I love that too, because that morality is part of what we're seeing about them using the Force. And I actually took this to kind of be the opposite in a lot of ways of this book shows why you can't be a gray Jedi. Because although, Ventress herself says like, buddy, you don't go too far, and we watch what happens. We watch, Quinlan feel that pull, and in the next chapter we see exactly where that goes, why that's such a slippery slope. Someone like Ventress, who has been steeped in it for this entire time, we're not necessarily watching her lightly using it. We're watching her transition from dark to light, and that's kind of where she ends up. But yeah, I loved how they played with those concepts. One thing that hit me, well, there's a couple things that hit me hard in this. After they save the kids and like Quinlan bonds with the little boy and all that stuff, and they drop him off, and then as they're leaving, they see that the enemy just coming in, and they know, oh, they're gonna kill all of those people that we just saved. What was this for? Like, did we do good here actually? Like that part just makes me sad. That definitely hit me hard. And then I also just love how Ventress is, how she, their conversation on the wink and the nod just make me laugh. I'm like, well, do you want to try it? Especially when she goes into Mustafar and she like, for this one, the full-on gambit. This is some of that just makes me laugh a lot. But yeah, this whole chapter, when she's teaching him about the snake, and then they're going on their runs, and then they finally run to the cave, where he can see her history, her heritage, and it adds so much depth to her as a character. Her being born a slave, like has a lot of similarities with Anakin, really, because she was born a slave, was liberated to become a Jedi, and then they killed her master, and she was captured again, and then she became Sith, and then was cast out, and she's been nothing to anyone. The only people she ever meant anything to was the Night Sisters, who are now all dead. And it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of tough stuff in this. Also, her lying to Quinlan about who killed his master, and we know, and it makes sense of like, yeah, you're not going to tell him this now, otherwise it's going to cause a problem. But we all know, like, oh, this is going to come out. This is not bode well. Yeah, there's a lot of awesome setup stuff, and then once again, I need to see Grievous in like a dinner jacket with cocktails, making small talk with dignitaries. Like, that would just make my day. All right, so they try to assassinate him. It doesn't work. And he gets captured. So we have that all the way through the rest of the book. See what jumps out at you guys. And this one I am starting with sorry, the order shifted, but starting with Vanessa.
So for this part, I felt that this was really when the writing was the best, and which is why I would prefer it as a book and not as a Clone Wars arc. There are just so many quotes that, like, you can't do justice in animation, like the stars glittered serenely, teasing him with the freedom he didn't have, or she stood, her heart wide open, her soul naked before him. Asajj Ventress had spent a lifetime living in the moment. She was a woman who had no patience for regrets or what ifs. She moved resolutely in a single direction forward, except now. So not only is the writing so beautifully, it's so beautiful, but also it really shows like how the characters are at such a point where they're really struggling with like their identity, and not because they've served a purpose for so long, but now they are not sure as to like how they will move forward. So I felt like the writing really did that justice there. Yeah.
And then other thoughts, because we're talking all the way through the end, so we get to see Quinlan fall to the dark side and her eventual end.
Oh, comment on that. Oh god.
You don't have to. I just want to make sure that you know that that's available.
Oh, okay. I don't know, because for that whole part, I stopped taking notes as much, so I kind of forgot like my initial reactions to things. But I felt so of course I was so upset that Ventress had to go, but it was like a really beautiful way to go. And there were points when she was forgiven for all of her crimes by the Jedi Council, but then Anakin was still like, oh, Ventress, like kind of talking trash about her. And I was like, because we have seen her grow so much as a character, but he hasn't. So I was like, okay, I can see where he's coming from, but like, shut up, Anakin, like you're annoying. So with that, I thought that was just like a funny little thing. But also the final moments with like when her body is brought back to Dathomir is like a very beautiful moment. And I like the ending. I'm not sure if other people did, but I thought that it was, as someone said, like full circle. Like it was just a really beautiful thing for me.
Awesome. I love it. And everything switched again. Brooke?
Yeah, so I'm laughing at my notes because I just have Sith eyes, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. I thought this part, like this ending part, was really suspenseful. I agree with Vanessa too that it was like the most well written section of the book. So I do agree there's a lot of like good imagery and like internal monologue stuff that we wouldn't be able to see in the show. So like if the other parts had been part of the show, I would be happy, but then I'm glad that I got to read this instead. I thought it was really suspenseful because I was like, I don't know, are they manipulating each other? But then I was like, Sith eyes, you can't fake that. Like when he was so angry at Ventress for finding out the truth, I was like, I don't know if a character like Voss could really fake something like that. And then it turns out that he was just kind of like suppressing the fact that he had fallen to the dark side. So I thought it was like really suspenseful how they did that. I actually really liked that really short scene between Anakin and Padme. Because Anakin was like, oh, well, they were involved. Like, how could they? And Padme's like, yeah.
Say something.
And so I think that part kind of even added to Anakin's character a little bit, how like almost immature, like narrow-minded he can be. And so I would have liked to see maybe how Voss's story could have influenced Anakin's if we had seen it play out in the Clone Wars, which would have been kind of cool. And then there's when they're following Voss around when he's like going to get Dooku again. That part felt like a Clone Wars episode to me, where Anakin's like, they're like hiding behind something, and Anakin's like, now? Obi-Wan's like, no. Now? Dude, no, not yet. I thought that was kind of funny. And then as far as the very end, I have mixed feelings about how Ventress' story ends, similarly to how I feel kind of about how Ben Solo's story ends. Because like I understand why the writers made those choices for those characters. I understand why they made the choice for Ventress and that she kind of had to go, and that she like finally got to end up back with her, you know, like family that she had always wanted in the end. So I thought that was like a beautiful moment. But I also feel like her character also could have deserved a little more than that, because I don't know if it was just the way it was written, but I felt like her death was almost like just a plot device for Voss's character, rather than giving her like full justice for her character. So I thought that she could have deserved a little bit more in that sense. Maybe if it had been written differently, I would have liked it more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and also both Megan Meeks in the chat and Connor for Life was like, oh man, tell Brooke she's amazing. This is so good, and they enjoyed your points just now. So, Liz.
I loved how they were continuously trading deceptions, Quinlan and Ventress, and up until Voss's statement of, oh, I want to meet your master, I had no idea where it was going. I kept going back and forth of, oh, is he really dark, or is he just acting to survive? Is this just kind of Ventress's trauma making her think that he has turned her distrust of him? And then also that statement, it just like brought up thoughts of like what would have happened if he had continued along that path, and they'd confronted Sidious. Probably would have died instantly. I don't know. Maybe it would have made no difference at all. But it's one of those courses which would have been, yeah, the alternate universe part of my brain really likes to think on what that would have looked like. His justification of, oh, I can protect, I can save my relationship, make the world safer for me and Ventress, just like they were considering the assassination of Dooku, his justification for moving along, confronting Sidious and trying to, in his mind, kind of sweep away this whole threat of the Sith. We know that probably wouldn't have worked out for him, but that was a really interesting path that they presented. I absolutely, yeah, I have mixed thoughts about Ventress's death. I agree with Brooke in that, yeah, I understand that it aligns very closely and echoes a lot of deaths in Star Wars, where there's that final redemption. I mentioned during the Lost Stars discussion, I really liked how we got to kind of sit with the characters alive for a moment and them kind of reconciling what they'd done in the past. We usually don't get those moments, and sometimes they're more wrenching than a tragic death at the end of the story being kind of their final moments together. And I loved her statement, though. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was very much the same thought as Rose articulates in Last Jedi, of we move forward not we move forward saving the people we love, not killing the things we hate. And I absolutely loved that moment. And I think it articulates really what was so wrong with the Jedi Council's decision to move forward with this assassination. It's always got to be defensive, focusing on preserving the good, not eliminating the bad, to try and, yeah, impose that order onto things. Yeah.
Awesome. Well said. And Ritz?
I loved Act 3. It was definitely my favorite act out of them all. It was so it like at the start I felt like it was dragging on a bit, but then because I just thought every half an hour it was like, okay, it's gonna end soon, and then I checked the time and it was like, no, there's like 4 hours left. So that I got a bit like, then I was just like, it's dragging on, but then the whole scene with Boba and the bounty hunters happened, and then that awesome fight against like Quinlan, Sith Quinlan, and then like there were so many awesome fight scenes, and like when it was like Act 3 was like his fall to the dark side, and like even though like my favorite parts were when he was kind of like acting like it wasn't there, he was kind of trying to get rid of it, or trying to but then he was trying to get rid of it for Ventress, but then also he thought, you know what, I could use this dark side to kill two Sith. I could kill Dooku and I could kill Sidious. So yeah, it was kind of it was like I did really enjoy this act, and I think I would have liked more Desh, because I don't know, I just loved Desh's character, and I think more Desh would have been cool. But
stab well, buddy. Stab well. And Trevor, your thoughts on it?
I mean, I can't believe that nobody's touched on this with the bounty hunter part. Like when Ventress tied up Boba Fett, I was like, she's not gonna get away with this. She's gonna get Boba Fett's coming back. He's gonna get her. And then how she came back to them, and Boba Fett handled this so maturely. As like, I loved this. This was his growth that we didn't get to see in between the Clone Wars, and then one of my favorite parts of the book is when they're coming back and Boba Fett says, "I'm not you." And I dropped my book. I was like, oh, I don't even think he meant to burn her, but he did. And then, yeah. And then that's why he's my favorite character. Because it was like, he had so much development in the so small amount of time that we got to see him. But that's probably just because he got like no development anywhere else. Like it was kind of just Boba Fett, legendary bounty hunter. And then I'm probably overthinking this, but Kenobi at the end, he gave him that moment with Quinlan, and I'm picturing this after Satine died. So I'm thinking he gave him that moment because he didn't get that moment with Satine. So he knew just how much that meant to Voss to get that last moment with Ventress.
Don't do
I
that to
mean,
me, man.
I mean, yeah, I
Freaking
just think
not
that's.
okay right now. Thanks.
I was like, I just kind of thought, I was like, I read that and I was like, I was thinking about that for the rest of the day. I was like, Kenobi gets that, like he gets it. And then Quinlan was a lot like Anakin, like turned to the dark side to save the one he loved, but then actually doing more harm than good, showing us again that the dark side is never something you want to turn to save others because it only saves yourself. Or, well, not even save yourself. It only, I mean, it's just bad.
Yeah, you end up it warps your thinking, and to him everything was so logical. Oh no, I'm doing this for this reason. Everyone's like, the hell you think is gonna happen? Like, you ever heard the scorpion and the frog? Like, come on, man, this is basic stuff. Justin, your thoughts?
All right, yeah, I liked this act a lot. It might be the best one. It's hard for me to say this whole book was good, but I loved, and nobody's touched on this so far except Brooke, which I agree. Dooku was so good. Like throughout Clone Wars, and this is another reason why I would like this to be in Clone Wars. He's kind of a Saturday morning cartoon bad guy, which is not a bad thing, but it's always like, I'm going to go be evil somewhere else. See you know. But in this book, he freaking manipulates. He sits like everything. He like opens that a wardrobe of lightsabers. Apparently, he's just like, this is my collection, and he takes his master saber because he knew he didn't even have to like be told. He knew what Ventress would have said because he trained Ventress. And he was like, here's your master's like, he's like, you can't make me touch it. You can't make, he's like, I don't have to make you touch it. Leave it in his cell with him. And I'm like, gosh, that's so evil and cool. Because he knew he would do it. He knew the curiosity would get the best of him. And then that's part of his fall. And then Quinlan's fall was so cool. And I'm definitely with Liz. Like it was kind of a little confusing at some point because I was like, is he just pretending to be evil or pretending to not be evil? I was in the like latter half of the book, like just racking my brain, but just like Trevor said, it really mirrored Anakin. He tasted the dark side, tasted that power, and was like, I can solve all the problems. I can do it. I can do it for the woman I love. I can do it, when really he wanted to like run away with her, but he was like, but also I'm going to kill all the Sith Lords when like we know he would have gotten his butt handed to him. But it blinds you, like you said, Brandon. And then when it comes to the very end and what happens to Ventress, I can definitely agree and see like it kind of being a tool, but also I feel like as far as deaths like that go, it was a better one because she, as someone we've seen, would always take the selfish choice, and then we watched her grow slowly to care about other people and to do things, to maybe care about people she identifies with. And then Quinlan kind of teaches her all people are important. And then she chooses to sacrifice herself for the one she loves. Like ultimate, like it's, like Iron Man's full circle arc. And because of that, not even knowing exactly that it would happen, but hoping that sacrifice would bring him back to the light, because it broke her heart to see him be steeped in darkness like she was. It was just powerful. I liked it a lot. It made me sad, I cried a little. It's fine, but just that, and that dying for that connection is what brought her to the light, which proved the Jedi wrong about connection and attachment. Like it can be good, and it brings someone to the light as much as it can bring someone to the dark, like it did to Quinlan. And then Quinlan realizes that difference and makes that decision going forward, which is why I like him as a character a lot and want to see that forward. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, one more thing. I keep forgetting one last thing. Then at the very end, what Kenobi says when he's like, this was our fault. We sent him on this mission. He fell to the dark side because of us. We have to take responsibility for this. It's really, and then what Liz said about what that could have meant for Anakin's fall, like that caught me off guard, but really makes me think about that. It's like, maybe if Kenobi would have probably said the same thing about Anakin if everything hadn't, Palpatine hadn't killed them all. It would have been like, this is our fault, because it was their fault, and it proves that the Jedi were corrupt, but there were still Jedi like Kenobi, my favorite, who could realize like, we can still serve the light, and we have to make amends, and we have to, because that was wrong, and yeah, sorry. That is my final thought. I had to get that because I would hate myself if I forgot to say that.
No, I love it. And Geeky.
Yeah. First of all, let me just say, Trevor, I didn't think about the Obi-Wan thing, and now I'm broken inside. So thank you for the rest of the night. Yeah, actually, Justin hit a good point, which is one of the things I love character development, and I really did feel like Ventress's end. Not to disagree with you, Brooke. I with Kylo Ren's end, I did think that the story was a little bit messed up due to the problems with the continuity. I think that it could have been handled better. I think Ventress's, like Justin said, she was a character when she was with the Dark Sisters. She had this group she had to work with, and then she became a Sith apprentice where literally she had to serve someone else. And then when she was cast away and the sisters were gone, she was like, well, I don't know what to do. And so she focused selfishly on herself until, she meets Quinlan, and then she realizes that she can work with people again. And she goes through this whole metamorphosis to a point where she's no longer thinking about herself. And then that's when she dies, is that she finally reaches that point where she's less selfish of a character. I also, going back to the Jedi Council, I don't really... Quinlan coming back after his little venture to the dark side, and he's like, you know what? I can do this. I can take out Dooku. Just give me one more chance. The Jedi are like, oh, all right, cool. Let's do it again. I feel like this would have been the point where the Jedi Council, being the high ground people, should have been like, hey, we probably shouldn't send you back in. You fell once, like, let's not try this again, or let's even just try to find someone else. There can't be just one Quinlan Vos, right? I mean, even Mace Windu was willing to kill Palpatine and just give up his Jedi way because they were too dangerous to be kept alive, stuff like that. And I feel like there are other people that didn't have as big of a problem, but because Mace wanted to keep his own appearance on with that he kind of was like, oh, look, Quinlan, you're good. Go again. It's okay. At least that's how I felt about it.
Yeah, I loved the ending personally because like you said, how evil was that of Dooku, knowing he's been starving, torturing, and beating this guy, brings him up to his regal suite as he's eating steak, and just like casually, like just the casual evilness is beautiful. And then leaving him in the cell with it. And of course, once Ventress first sees him and he's about to kill her, yeah, that whole scene was just amazing to me. But the overall, also before she dies and she feels the light, and how powerful and warm, and like it's almost like, I should have been doing this all along type of thing. Like that was powerful to me as well, because it goes to show you, she's only been her beliefs closed her off from something that would have been so amazing for her, but she was unwilling. She wouldn't believe that it's what she needed. And then also, like everyone else, I was confused as well of like, okay, did he fall, or was what was his name, Professor Enigma, Dr. Enigma, Professor Chaos, like
the Riddler? No.
Enigma.
Yeah. Like, is this just propaganda and he didn't fall? Or did he fall? Is he a double, triple agent? But the scene where Ventress looks at him after she's been freed, and they can go off and do their life, but he is no longer the man that she loved, and she's horrified by that. And that also echoes to what happened with Anakin, of him trying to attain ultimate power to save Padme, but it's not what Padme wanted, and Padme would not be with the man that would murder a bunch of children. I mean, she didn't care when it was sand people, but Jedi Younglings is a little bit different. Overall, the message that we keep seeing over and over again in Star Wars is that our past does not define us, that we are what we choose to be. And that's exactly what this shows again. You know, when she finally lets go of all the past horrible things that happened to her, but she actually chose what to be, then that brought her back to the light. And the same thing with Quinlan. You know, that's what eventually brought him back, but now he's, I'm assuming, a very broken man. And that's why I need more Quinlan. I need to know where where this goes from here. But yeah, I think this story overall brings a lot of context to the Jedi, to the differences and similarities between the dark side and the light side, between how complex you know, your anyone's beliefs are, especially in how similar your beliefs can be to the people that you are in opposition to, you know. But yeah, it's just my thoughts. Why don't we go through and kind of do some final thoughts on our overall themes. You know, if you have the questions up, just that last chunk of what you guys think, overall themes of it, would you guys take away? Also, I need to know, what is their ship name? Is it Quintress or Ventlon? It's a very serious question.
Quintress.
But yeah, this one I will start with Liz.
I think major themes, I would definitely say, kind of echoing what I said earlier, the quote of "you save what you love, you don't destroy what you hate, or what's against you." I feel like so much of this, starting with the assassination plot against Dooku, and then ending with Quinlan's whole plan to vanquish the Sith entirely. He lost sight of the good things in his life, like Ventress and their love, Quintress forever. And again, I feel like that line throughout the plot, morphing from the original plot to the end, it shows what really went wrong with the Jedi, of when they get mired in the tragedies that they're facing. They're making decisions, trying to protect what they've built, the society that they love. They're willing to get their hands dirty to further that end, rather than trying to maintain kind of a positive influence on the galaxy. I don't know if I'm articulating that really well, but
no, I'm following you. And then Trevor, final thoughts, overall themes.
I mean,
whatnot?
It was overall a really good book, and I liked it. And since I feel like I have to make this up to you, since I left you guys with such a awful Satine thought, I'll leave you with: Ventress died on the light side selflessly, meaning there's a chance that she and Quinlan are both Force ghosts, meaning they can be together after
Aw.
all this. So
Thanks,
yeah,
Trevor.
so I'll heal you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Vanessa?
I couldn't get to the unmute button. But mainly what I want to respond to is the thoughts on their relationship part. I thought that they really got to see each other as equals, and I really loved how Ventress was finally able to feel vulnerable and understand the importance of vulnerability and feel loved by him, because it was something that she deserved for so long. But I don't think that that was her love for him was a vehicle for her turning back to the light side, and just showing like again what you're saying about how you choose your destiny in a way, like even though she was stuck in a terrible place, and how her pain was like all encompassing, she learned how to be selfless. My dogs are barking. She learned how to finally be selfless and to feel love and to give love because she knew what it felt like. So I feel like her death, well, her sacrifice was an act of love. So yeah, her burial in a way was very beautiful and meaningful to me. And also one thing about the Jedi Council, everyone has been talking about that a lot with how they were trying so hard to redeem Quinlan. I wasn't sure at the time if they were doing it just so that there wouldn't be another Sith apprentice, and if they were doing it because they wanted to save Quinlan, someone that they know and respect, and just hoping for his redemption, or if they were just doing it because they were worried of like the Sith getting out of control. So if someone wants to respond to that or like justify that, I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, I think we can say with certainty that at least Obi-Wan was trying to save Quinlan. I mean, and from what I've seen in the prequels, I'm not trying to impose. I don't think Mace probably was doing it just for the Sith. Mace didn't seem to really care about people, as we saw with Anakin. He was kind of a jerk to Anakin, but I can't blame him because he wasn't wrong. So, I mean, but he didn't really seem to have a lot of compassion, which is a big Jedi trait. So that's why I didn't really always like Mace Windu. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends on, which master you would have to be with on that one. Because like you said, with Obi-Wan's willing to always try to sacrifice anything to save people. But then like Mace or Luminara, they would just be like, well, we can't have another Sith Lord. Like, we got to take him out. Like, it just depends on who it is.
Yeah.
And Yoda would just say, let's go to the Force about it.
Exactly.
Okay. And and then Sawyer, any thoughts overall from what you've got through?
I mean, first of all, obviously I wanted to finish this book and I just didn't get around to it. But now that we've had this whole discussion and seeing, I'm so glad that I decided to stay for the whole thing, because like now I really, really want to finish this book, and I'm gonna make that a priority in the next week. Yeah, I mean, kind of what Vanessa said, I'm really glad that we had this opportunity to see Ventress kind of have a chance to find that love that she deserved. And and just see, obviously, I don't know, I'm partial. I really, really wanted to see more of Ventress in the Clone Wars after she went off and became a bounty hunter, because those couple of episodes that she's in, you see a lot more humanity within her. So yeah, I don't know, I really am glad that this book was able to expand upon that and give her what I think is the ending that she deserved. Yeah. So, and definitely it's, what are we saying? Quintress? Yes, it's definitely, that's the ship name for sure. The other one does not sound as good.
Wait, can anyone else not hear Brandon?
Yeah, no.
Or is that just me?
Yeah.
That was my fault. I apologize.
Okay. I was about to freak out. I was like, oh no, we lost him. He's gone.
No, but yeah, Justin, we'll go to you for your final thoughts and
so
whatnot.
Yeah, to sum it up and like kind of rapid fire the questions, the themes, what you said, Brandon, is beautiful. Like, we're more than our past, we're more than the mistakes we make, and both Quinlan and Ventress learn that, and they learn that together by coming together. So like, why I like their relationship a lot is because he is kind of a paragon of the Jedi. He's like, they're all I know, and being a good person's all I know. Caring about others is all I know. I'm trying to be a good Jedi. And she lived a life of nothing but pain and people taking advantage of her. And so he has this nice outside, but kind of like hollow inside that she finds. And then she has this like tattered outside, but still like a nugget of good inside that he finds. And then they come together, they meet in the middle, and they kind of make each other better because of that, which is why I like their relationship, and then the themes of what I just said. I identify with Quinlan a lot because being someone who's like so good and like, but then falling anyway because of reasons, and then it's like Quinlan, the dark side. That's crazy. I've been that guy before, and then still being, and then you feel even more shame, but then still being able to come back from that. It's nice, and I like the themes of that. It's definitely Quintress. Vintland sounds like the name of a random guard in Jabba's palace that they would ask at a trivia question. Quintress just sounds better. What did we learn about the dark side? There's a whole lot, and I believe it was either Vanessa or Liz that brought it up. It was like, I think we kind of, what Brandon said, reinforced what we know about the dark side, because Ventress only knew the dark side until the end, like he said. And then when they're going at a task that's like, we're going to assassinate Dooku, we're going to kill a man in cold blood. So Quinlan, you have to use the dark side to do that. That's a dark side thing to do. You will not succeed if you continue to be this paragon of light. So that's what I took from those scenes. She was like, no, you have to get stronger in the dark. That's the only way you're defeating Dooku, because that's truly what she thought. And she was technically correct, because they were, going to go assassinate a person. And, just the lore of the dark side, and it was all great. And I think nobody's touched this, but was Ventress right to lie to him? No. You don't lie to friends, and you especially don't lie to lovers. You see, when you're that close, and it blew up in her face. It was kind of one of the reasons he fell, and she blamed herself, which must have sucked, which made her redemption even that greater. She was like, I made a mistake. He's on this path because of me, and I can't stand that. So I'm gonna choose to do the right thing in this moment, which is again why I think her final moments were just really powerful. But yeah, overall, it's a great book, a great story. I'd love it as a book and a Clone Wars season. I don't know, but it was just a great story.
Oh. And Ritz?
Well, I really enjoyed this book. Like, there's not much more to say, as like everyone else has said exactly, like that everyone else is right. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Although I've only read 2 books, this is definitely one of the best. And I love reading these Star Wars books, and it's also, I think the ship name would definitely be Quintress. And that's all.
Vintland sounds like the name of an amusement park that I don't want to go to.
Vintland Toss
Or
sounds
a
like a
pet company.
carnival game.
Geeky?
Yeah, so obviously Quintress. I'm not gonna say Vinland, or Finland, or whatever you want to call it. I honestly really liked their relationship, because Ventress was an outcast. She got cast away from being Dooku's side. She didn't work well with other people, and then even Voss, he was kind of an outcast even in the Jedi Order. So seeing the two of them kind of connect in ways that they did throughout the book was incredible. As far as overall themes go, like I tend to connect things with like an outside world kind of situation, and I really in this book felt like the Jedi Council was kind of like modern Christianity. I know that I really don't like to talk about these kind of topics, but I did feel that way. Was that you have like the more liberal Christians versus the more conservative Christians, and then Yoda, who, despite not being in this book, is one that's just like, well, let's pray on it, let's kind of hope, and then kind of more of like a middle ground kind of character. Whereas you have Obi-Wan and Anakin and Voss, who are more liberal and more loving of everyone and compassionate. And then you have the more conservative ones like Luminara and Mace, that they're very by the books and very lacking in compassion, but more thought-provoking and more like calculating and cold. And that was a major theme that I took across there. And as far as Ventress, was she right to lie? That is a hard and loaded question. It's one of those things that you can see throughout many different films in cinema where something bad happens and someone's involved, and they end up becoming friends with the person, and then they get too deep in that relationship to that they're like, oh well, I'll tell him later, I can't tell him now, you know. And then before they know it, they're way too deep into the situation, and if you tell him, then you're going to ruin everything. And she didn't want to lose him, so she didn't tell him, but then she does end up kind of losing him. It happens over and over in cinema. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That was a major like plot device.
And not to keep talking about Arrow, but that happens in every episode of Arrow.
Yes.
Oh my god. Oh jeez.
That's why I stopped watching in like season 4.
Oh Jesus.
I
We
never
can make an
started.
Arrow slander podcast later.
Yes.
But all right, final thoughts and things. Brooke, bring us home.
Yes. So well, as everyone was talking, I was like furiously adding more and more notes to my thing. So to echo everyone else, I agree with the same kind of theme. Like your story or where you've come from doesn't really define who you are. Because like from the beginning, we're posed with the question: is it better to have a story that's all terrible things, or is it better to have no story at all? And I think they were both able to create their own story, whether it was good or bad. So we saw Ventress was able to like rise above everything that's happened to her, and like put aside her pride and her ego to, you know, save the person that she loved, which eventually brought her back to the light. So she was able to, you know, end her story, although she had to go, but ended it kind of on a happy note, at least for her like conscious or her like soul or whatever you want to call it. And then Voss, whether it was good or bad, I think, I forget who said it earlier, but as a Jedi, like his life was probably all planned out for him, and he didn't really have a story because of that. So I think that he enjoyed the freedom of being able to like go off with Ventress, and I think he got a taste of not only the dark side, but also just the freedom of being able to like choose and do what you want, which maybe is why he was so kind of fell to the dark side so easily. Like we saw him struggle. Like obviously we saw him struggle with the sleeper and everything, but it seemed kind of like all of a sudden it was kind of an easy fall. So maybe it was he just wanted to make his own story out of that. So yeah, I think he just took advantage of his freedom a little bit because of it. And then going back to the council, like we saw in the beginning, we were all kind of surprised that they were like, yeah, you're going to go assassinate someone. And then even more surprised when they finally had suspicions about Voss, and they're like, well, we're going to go assassinate him too, like whatever it takes, was very like drastically different from what the Jedi like preach. So kind of like what Geeky said, they are kind of like twisting it to fit their narrative, which I thought was kind of interesting, and I don't agree with, I guess. I definitely, Quintress is the better name for sure. It was interesting because the relationship kind of made me a little like uncomfy at first, because I just assumed from like what I had known from Ventress before, I just assumed she was manipulating him the whole time. Like I didn't know where her story was going to go. So then when you find out that her feelings are real, I liked it a lot more. They have the like classic relationship trope of like very serious woman who like doesn't care about anyone, like cares about her job more than anything else, and is like worn down by you know, they're like the goofy guy. It's like Andy and April kind of trope that we see in so many things. But I thought it worked really well for their characters and their character growth. I think they were able to learn from each other. I thought it was executed very well. Less romantic comedy and more like Star Warsy. Yeah, I think that's all I had.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, and thank you guys all for geeking out with me, and it's awesome that there was actually people I can have these conversations with of like this fictional world, but yeah, I super appreciate it. For me, one thing I do have to say though is because there is a lot of talk about the Jedi got what they deserve, or the Jedi were responsible for Anakin's downfall and all this stuff. I feel like a lot of that ignores the fact that the Jedi are constantly being put in an impossible situation by a Sith Lord who's intentionally manipulating them
And
to
hence
have to make
planned
this
everything.
choice, you know? So I feel like we can't just gloss over, you know, especially Anakin's fall. We can't gloss over that he's had a Sith Lord like grooming him since he was 9 years old to fall to the dark side. I gotta say that's probably a little higher on the cause than the Jedi, but yeah, we did get to see a lot more of their imperfections and how things got this bad and why they were making these decisions that are really out of character for what they should be doing. So it's like a, and I think we can all apply this to our own personal lives because there's a lot of things that are a slippery slope, and you know how far down this mountain are you willing to chase this thing to stop it? You know, at what point do you give up or say or turn back? um I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but again, thank you guys for joining me here, and yeah, may the force be with all of you.
Jocko.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.